Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, Everlynn's Books and Tea. Today we are doing our monthly reading game, which I am super excited about, and I've been looking forward to this since last month, basically. And our reading game for May is going to be a cozy reading game where we are going to be reading cozy fantasies, cozy mysteries that have a spring-summer feeling, or as far as I could tell by looking at the descriptions, as well as cozy romances that take place in spring summertime. So it's like the spring version of my fall cozy reading game. So this game is set up very similar to the cozy reading game I did back in fall. I think it was in November. And the rules of the game are pretty much the same, just with a spring summer twist to them. So let me give you a quick rundown on how this game is going to go. This is our board. Right now we only have our start finish tokens on here. But basically, like last time, we'll be filling this board with our token path that we will use to determine what books we are going to read. And I absolutely love this board. My mom made me the flowers to put on here, and I think this is super cute. And just wait till you see it with the tokens on it. So just like in the fall, we have 4 different tokens that we will be putting on the board that mean different things if we land on them, just like in the fall. And the tokens are, we have a cover jar token. I'll put a bigger version up here. And if we land on this, it means we'll be pulling out 8 covers from one of our cover jars and using the dice to determine which of those 8 books we are going to read. Then we have a pick a prompt token, and if we land on this, we'll be drawing a prompt out of this mug here, and the prompts have to do with the cover or the title of the book. And then we have the variety jar token. It says jar, but I have changed this into a variety spin wheel. And on the spin wheel are different prompts that have to do with either what year the book was published, what the author's name starts with, trying to think of some of the others, the color of the book cover, just kind of broad things like that. So it gives us a little bit more leeway when we're choosing books if we land on this. And then lastly is our mystery spot token, and this is kind of like a wild card token. If we land on this, we're going to roll a die, and we could end up being able to move forward for free. We could end up having to move backwards. We could, skip a turn, or we may have to read a book. So anything goes on the mystery spot. And then lastly, this board has all our potential reads for this game. I have chosen 30 books in each category and have put them on here. And those are the books that we could potentially read during this game. So today is Friday. It's about 5 o'clock in the evening. And I have planned this weekend to get through and complete this game board. So we'll see if we can do it. It'll be like a 48-hour reading game, readathon, whatever you want to call it. And I'm hoping that we can get done with this whole game in the next 48 hours so that I can have it up and ready on time, unlike the Gilmore Girls game last month. So we'll see how this goes. But what we have to do first is let's set up our game board, and then we'll go ahead and do our first roll of the game and see what book we'll be reading for the first book for our cozy reading game for May. All right, here's our board. So let's go ahead and randomly put our tokens on and see what our game board looks like this month. Here's our game board. I feel like it's pretty good. It's pretty random. The only things I will say is our 2 mystery spots. We have 2 together here and 2 together up there, but otherwise the board looks good, and hopefully we will have a nice game board. I think last time we ended up reading 7 books, so hopefully we'll read a little bit less than that. So this is a token we are going to use. It's the one I used for my April TBR game, which was very nice to me. So I'm hoping it will carry over to this game. We'll be using an 8-sided die, so let's go ahead and do our first roll. And it's a 4. Not too bad. A pretty good start. And we landed on our variety jar. All right, so for our first roll, we rolled a 4, which is a pretty good start to the game. It's much better than a 1 or a 2, and we landed on the variety jar, which is technically a spin wheel. So let me bring up the spin wheel, and we'll see what prompt we get. So here is our spin wheel. Let's go ahead and spin it and hope we get a good prompt and some good book choices to choose from. All right, let's see what we get. All right, we have a page number, a book between 330 to 370 pages. So that's not too bad. That's actually a pretty good start to the game. We're not going to have to read a super long book, and it's a page number that should fit a lot of books. So let me pull up my list and look at what choices we have to choose from. All right, so we have 17 books to choose from. So let me narrow it down a little bit, and I'll give you my top 3 choices that then we'll choose one of those books. I have managed to narrow it down to 3 choices. It took me a minute to figure out which ones I wanted to narrow it down to, but I ended up choosing one from each category. It took me a little bit of time, but I've managed to narrow it down to 3 choices from 17, so I'm very proud of myself for that. We have one option each for cozy fantasy, cozy mystery, and cozy romance that we are going to choose between. And let's just start with cozy fantasy because I have that in my hand right here. And that book is going to be The Dark Archives by Genevieve Codman, which is the 6th or 7th book in the Invisible Library series that I've been reading for years, basically. But I really love this series. So it's a series that is set in an alternative universe where there are many different Earths that each have kind of like their own timeline on how things occur. And there are these librarians that are hired by the Invisible Library, whose task it is to maintain balance on all the different Earths. So basically, to maintain balance, they have to balance the magic of the Fae, which is kind of like a crazy chaos magic, with the magic of the dragons, which is a more orderly magic. And each world is either more orderly or more chaotic, and then something may go awry, and the librarians have to find a specific book to bring that world back into order. It's kind of the best description I can give for this series. But it's been a really fun series. I'm looking forward to finishing it, which is why I made this my cozy fantasy option. All right, so the cozy mystery option is Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers by Jesse Q. Sutanto. I've actually read one of their books before. It was a romance book. I haven't read a book in the series, obviously, since this is the first book in the series, but it was a Goodreads Choice nominee for mystery back in 2023. So this book follows 60-year-old Vera Wong, who enjoys doing some at-home detective work through the internet. But then one morning, Vera wakes up to find a dead man in her tea shop. And she knows she can figure out this mystery better than the police can. And Vera decides that it's her turn to catch the murderer. So that is our second option. And then our third option is The Highland Fling by Megan Quinn. This book obviously takes place in Scotland, in the Scottish Highlands. It follows Bonnie St. James, who has kind of lost her way, not sure what she wants to do, when her and her best friend kind of stumble across this help wanted post to run a coffee shop in the Scottish Highlands. She jumps on that chance and moves to the Highlands. So when they arrive in this idyllic little town called Corskelley, they find a beautiful landscape, friendly locals, except for one man, Rowan, who is not friendly at all. So the book asks the question, so the book is going to answer the question, can Bonnie and Rowan build on their similarities to help each other find purpose and direction, and maybe a little romance too? So those are the 3 options we are going to choose from. I think I'm going to cross out The Dark Archives because, like I said, while I enjoy that book, it does usually take a little bit more paying attention to the story. And I want to start off this reading-a-thon game thing being able to just kind of binge read and not have to think so much. So we'll cross the Dark Archive one off for now. We may read that later on in the game if we get that option again, but for a Friday night, I want a quick, easy read where I can just read and not have to think so much. So that leaves us with Vera Wong and The Highland Fling, and of those 2, I think I'm going to go with The Highland Fling because I always love romances set in the Scottish Highlands, and I am excited to see how this book goes and how it is. So that will be the first book we'll be reading for our cozy reading game, and I can't wait to see how I enjoy it. So I will come back once I finish that book and let you know. So I'll see you guys soon, hopefully tonight. Hopefully it'll still be Friday when I finish this book. We'll see. So it's 8:30 now, about 3.5 hours since we last talked, and I have read a total of 50 pages in this book. So you can see how well I am getting through this. So I did make dinner, so that, took up a chunk of reading time. And then I also spend just some time unwinding from the workday. So that is why I have read only the 50 pages so far. But let's get to the book I'm reading, which again is The Highland Fling by Megan Quinn. As I said, I'm 50 pages into it, which is about chapter 5. So I have met all the main characters so far, so I can give you a little update on my thoughts on this book so far. So, first off, for those who are doing the 52 weeks, no, 52 books in 52 weeks, I think one of those prompts is that you have to read a book that breaks the fourth wall. This book does it. So, here's another option for you if you're trying to find something to fit that prompt. So at this point, 50 pages in, I'm leaning towards giving this book somewhere between a 3 to 3.5 out of 5. There's nothing in it that really fully impresses me for a romance book. I am definitely enjoying it. It does seem like a fun book, but nothing like on the scale of, the 7 Year Slip, those type of romances that I typically give higher ratings to, just for the way it's written, the way the characters are in. There's a lot of cheesy dialogue in this book, so if that's not something you really enjoy reading, this is probably not the book for you. Like I said before, I've been introduced to the three main characters. I think most of the chapters are going to be told by either Bonnie St. James' viewpoint or Rowan's viewpoint, which is the main female character, male character pairing. So now let's get into the actual book. So like I said before, this book follows two best friends, Dakota and Bonnie, who are actually living in LA when they end up getting evicted from their house, have nowhere to go. Bonnie lost her job. Dakota is a graphic designer who works for home, so who can work from anywhere. And Dakota comes across the advertisement for a job to run a coffee shop in the Scottish Highlands. And Dakota has just come off of a breakup from her girlfriend, and she convinces Bonnie to apply for this job. They end up getting it, and the two of them fly out to live in the Scottish Highlands. In the second chapter of the book, you start to see them kind of try to find their way through Scotland because they have to drive from Inverness to wherever they're living. I forget the name of the town. And they have to navigate the roads on driving on the wrong side through tricky, road things that occur in the United Kingdom, like roundabouts. So that happens to be the introduction to the two main female characters of the story. They are more like the sunny, sunshine characters. Obviously, they're both dealing with things, but they still kind of keep a upbeat attitude that this is going to work out for both of them. The male character I just got introduced to in the last chapter, and that is Dakota. And Dakota happens to be the son of the owners of the coffee shop that Bonnie and not Dakota. Am I already saying the wrong name? All right. Then Rowan is the male main character who happens to be the son of the owners of the coffee shop that Bonnie and Dakota are going to run for the next 6 months. And he is a grumpy man. When when I can't even keep these names straight. When Bonnie and Rowan first run into each other, they kind of accidentally meet in the cottage that his parents own, but where Bonnie and Dakota are staying. He runs into Bonnie there unexpectedly because he didn't know that they were living there, and they kind of have a little face off. And you can tell that Rowan is going to be the grumpy character to Bonnie's sunshine character. So it's going to be like a grumpy sunshine, grumpy romance book. So I've enjoyed the book so far. Dakota and Bonnie are very alike. There's not too much yet that stands each one out from the other. And then Rowan seems right now to be your typical grumpy Scottish Highland character. So we'll see where the book goes from here, how the characters evolve. I'm definitely interested to find out. And like I said, it's been a fairly quick read when I've actually sat down to read it. It's not been a difficult read, which is great for the first book for this game. But for now, I am going to go feed my cat her dinner. She needs her insulin shot, and she is starting to get antsy, which means she's starting to get hungry, which is perfect, so I can give her insulin and she can eat her dinner. And then I'm probably going to get ready for bed, watch an episode. I'm just following her. She's over there. That's why I keep looking over there. Watch an episode of my TV show and then see how far I can get through this book tonight. I'm not going to stay up super late tonight just because I have worked all week. I'll probably fall asleep if I start trying to read it in the later hours of the night. But tomorrow, I'm definitely planning a full day of reading and playing this game so that we can get through it by Sunday. So she's already headed to her dinner bowl. She heard me say that word. So I better get going. I will update you tomorrow once I finish this book, and then we'll go ahead and do that second roll of our game. So I'll see you guys soon. Bye. All right, it is now Saturday, and I have finished The Highland Fling by Megan Quinn. We are about mid-afternoon, around 2 o'clock-ish, when I have finally finished this book. And overall, I ended up enjoying it. I know I said yesterday that I was going to give it like a 3 to 3.5. I think it's a solid 3.75 out of 5 stars. And the reason why I kind of bumped it up from my original guess is because the kind of cheesy humor that was in the beginning of the book went away. There's still humor, but I enjoyed the humor much more than I did in those first 50 pages. So if you do read this book in the future, definitely push past the first 50 pages because I feel like the tone of the book changed and it became a enjoyable romantic comedy. So like I said, the book follows the two main characters, Rowan and Bonnie, as well as Bonnie's best friend, Dakota, who's kind of like a side character but has her own story that goes on throughout the book that we see from Bonnie's and Rowan's point of view. And the basis of the book is that Bonnie needs to find herself, and she does that through taking care of this coffee shop that is owned by Rowan's parents, but has kind of fell apart since Rowan's dad had to retire. I felt the characters definitely grew throughout the book, though Bonnie and Dakota still felt kind of similar, but there were little bits of differences between the two, and Rowan kind of kept his same gruff, grumpy appearance throughout the book as well. I did enjoy the relationship between Bonnie and Rowan. I felt that it grew at the appropriate pace and the ups and downs felt real to me. The third act, what's it called? The third act disaster? Is that what it is? I can't even think of it right now. But the third act disaster is what I'll just go ahead and call it. Definitely felt real. It didn't feel like it was manufactured. What caused that third act disaster definitely felt like it was building up throughout the book, and when it did occur, it felt like a natural part of the story. It didn't feel forced like some of those third act, why can't I think of the word, disasters sometimes do. There are some triggers in this book that I would recommend potentially looking up beforehand. It's more to do with family members than it is about relationships, but I would definitely look into those triggers beforehand because they kind of catch you by surprise, I would say. Like I said, I give this book a 3.75 out of 5 stars. It's not like a revolutionary romance, but it's definitely an enjoyable romantic comedy that if you're looking just for a fun, bingeable read, that you just want to devour without actually, having to think a lot, this is the perfect book. I think it would be a good book for vacation. Maybe not the beach because it's not really like a beach story. But if you're going to the mountains or to a lake, places like that, I feel like this would be a perfect book to read on those types of vacation. So that is the first book of the game. We have one book down. I have no idea how many more books we have because we're just going to have to see as we roll. But I'm feeling good. We still have the rest of today, tonight, and tomorrow to get through this game. But, we have to go ahead and do that second roll so we can see what book we are going to end up reading next. So let's bring up the game board and do that second roll. All right, here we are back at our game board. Last time we rolled that 4, but let's go ahead and hope for another good roll. So let's see what we get. Another 4. All right, this time we ended up on pick a prompt. So let me grab that mug and we'll go ahead and pick a prompt. All right, so here is our prompt mug. I'm just gonna go ahead and put it down right here, and then let's go ahead and pick a random prompt. Again, these prompts have to do with the book cover or the book titles. All right, let's go with this one here. I don't know if this will focus, but I guess we'll find out. And our prompt is food on the cover. All right, I know you're probably not going to be able to see all these covers, but these are all the covers we have to choose from. All right, so now I'll pull some of the books that have food on the cover. I'm not going to pull every single one because that would be a lot of books, but the titles that look interesting to me are the ones we'll choose from. Our first choice will be A Dark and Secret Magic. Our second book choice will be An Assistant to the Villain. Our third option will be Cream Caramel and Murder. Our fourth option is The Secret Bone and Scone Society. And our fifth option will be When in Rome. So let's talk about the 5 books we pulled off the board so we can narrow it down to the one we're going to read. So let's start with the cozy fantasies first. We have A Dark and Secret Magic and Assistant to the Villain. A Dark and Secret Magic has pumpkins on the cover, and Assistant to the Villain has apples on the cover. So we have checked off the food prompt on the cover. A Dark and Secret Magic is about a hedge witch named Kate who's living her best life in Ipswich when one day a handsome man from her past shows up at her doorstep named Matthew and asks her for sanctuary. As a hedge witch, she cannot say no, so she grants him sanctuary at her house. And the reason that she's not crazy about doing this is that he practices forbidden magic. But it turns out to be a blessing in disguise because one day while she's preparing for Halloween, she comes across a dark tome which happens to be owned by her mother, and Matthew will be able to help her figure out what this tome is for and what her mother was actually doing without Kate knowing. And then Assistant to the Villain follows Evie, who answers a help wanted ad and becomes the assistant to the kingdom's most notorious villain. And as she gets used to her job, she finds out a plan to take out the villain. So now she must figure out who is planning on taking out the villain so that she can tell the villain who these people are so they can sabotage what these people plan. There we go. So those are our 2 cozy fantasy options. I am going to cross out A Dark and Secret Magic, mostly because it seems to take place around Halloween, so I want to save that for the fall cozy game, and we'll keep Assistant to the Villain for now. And I do realize Assistant to the Villain is more of a romantasy, but I like to keep the romance category mostly, not all, but mostly contemporary. So that's why it's under the fantasy category. All right, for our 2 mystery books, we have Cream Caramel Murder, which has a cupcake on the cover, and The Secret Book and Scone Society, which has scones on the cover. So Cream Caramel and Murder is book 1 of the Holly Holmes series by K.E. O'Connor, and it follows Holly, who has just taken a job as the baker at Audley Castle, and she is really coming into her new life and really enjoying it. Until one day her dog Meatball happens to find a body on Audley Castle's grounds. And now everyone thinks that Holly killed this person. So Holly must clear her name or she'll lose her amazing new life in the beautiful Audley Castle. And then The Secret Book and Scone Society is also book 1 of the series by the same name. And it follows Nora, who is the owner of the Miracle Bookshop. And she has this talent to know exactly the right book that a person needs at whatever time of life they are in. One day, a visiting businessman reaches out to Nora to ask her recommendations for a novel. And Nora knows the perfect novel for this businessman, but before she can give it to him, the businessman ends up dead. So Nora ends up forming the Secret Book and Scone Society, which is a group of damaged souls yearning to gain trust and earn redemption. And the first task that this society is going to do is to uncover the truth behind the businessman's demise. All right, so out of these 2 books, while I really definitely want to read both of these, I think the one I'm going to keep on for now is Cream Caramel Murder, mostly because it's shorter. It's less than 200 pages, so that would kind of be nice to have as our second book for this game. Plus it takes place in a castle. Who doesn't love reading mystery set in castles? Then last up we have When in Rome by Sarah Adams, and this is book 1 in the When in Rome series, which I feel is a pretty popular series. So this book follows Amelia, who's known as a Princess of Pop and is just burned out from years of maintaining that Princess of Pop image to her fans. So one day she takes inspiration from her favorite Audrey Hepburn film, Roman Holiday, and drives off in the middle of the night to Rome. But not Rome, Italy, Rome, Kentucky. But then her car breaks down in front of Noah Walker's house, and Noah, being the nice guy, says that he can use their guest room. But only until her car is fixed, then she's on her own. But then Noah starts seeing the real Amelia and can't help getting close to her. But at some point, Amelia is going to have to go back to her glamorous life on town. But until then, Noah's going to continue showing her the small town life. But the question is, what will happen to the relationship when she has to leave Rome? All right, so we've narrowed it down to 3 books. Now we have to get it down to 1. I think we're going to start off by crossing off 1 in Rome just because I just came off reading a contemporary romance and I want to get something a little bit different for the second book so I don't, get bored reading the same type of books over and over. So we'll cross that one off for now. So now we have our cozy fantasy / romantasy and our mystery on the board. I really do want to read An Assistant to the Villain, but I'm just really feeling like a mystery right now. I don't know why, but a mystery set at a castle just feels like the perfect next book for this reading game. So I think I am going to go with Cream Caramel and Murder and see how the first book in the Holly Holmes series goes. I can't wait to read about a castle, a murder, how Holly gets herself out of this, and of course her little dog Meatball. So it's a short book, like I said, it's like 170 pages. So I'll probably just come back to you at the end of the book because I don't think it should take too long to read. So I will see you guys later today, Saturday, so we can pick out our third book. Definitely later today. This is not going to take me until tomorrow. So I'll see you guys soon. All right, it is 9 o'clock at night and I have finished Cream Caramel and Murder by K.E. O'Connor. And overall, I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. It was a cozy mystery, but there was nothing that stood out uniquely about it that I would put it at a higher rating. I will say I picked a perfect time to read the mystery, though, because right in the middle of the book, we had a huge thunderstorm, lightning, pouring rain, and definitely gave me the atmosphere of a murder mystery. So that was fun. And I actually just stepped outside to grab the mail since it finally stopped raining and it's just a nice cool spring evening. That's perfect to have your windows open and hopefully the perfect weather for another cozy book after this one. But let's talk about Cream Caramel and Murder first. So this book is told from the first person viewpoint of Holly, who's the baker who used to own a coffee shop that failed after a chain coffee shop came into the little town that she lives in, and she ends up working at the castle where the Duke, Duchess, and a princess lives. She ends up becoming friends with the princess, and one day when she's out on a walk with the princess as well as her dog Meatball, they come across a body. Meatball actually finds it, and now she becomes a suspect because she found the body, but also because she has no alibi for the night that that person was killed. So overall, I enjoyed the book, but the mystery, how it was solved, wasn't anything that made me go, wow, I never saw that coming. I don't think you could have actually solved the mystery based on the information given in the books, but even when the murderer was revealed, it wasn't anything like jaw-dropping or anything like that. There was also a very small underlying romance in the book, in the story, but I really didn't want those two characters to get together. They just didn't feel like they were a match based on their personality. And I don't know, it just didn't feel right for those two characters to be together. I felt like they were more friends than boyfriend, girlfriend material. But we'll have to see what happens in future books with that relationship. So I don't really have much else to say about Cream Caramel and Murder. There wasn't anything that really stood out to me that made this a amazing cozy mystery. It was kind of on par with your typical quick cozy mystery reads that are in those very long series, and I'm definitely going to continue on with the other ones because they are quick, easy reads. But it's nothing that I feel like I really need to get to that second book in a hurry. So that's it for book 2. So let's go ahead and bring up the game board and do our third roll and see how much further we can get into this challenge tonight. All right, so we're coming up on the last 2 chances to land on Mystery Spot, and we're also coming up upon our cover jars, which happen to be all at the end of this game. So we've done our variety prompt so far. We've done a pick a prompt. Let's see if we get another one of those or if we land on a new token. So let's go ahead and do our third roll. Turn the dice around so you can all see. So we got a 6. So we are moving forward very nicely in this game. We may actually have this done by tomorrow evening. 2, 3, 4. All right, and this time we ended up on Cover Jar, which always makes me nervous because it's the least amount of control I have in choosing a book. Is all pretty much random. So I will tell you each step as we go through this token's rolls. All right, first up, we are going to roll a 6-sided die. That's going to tell us if we are going to pull covers out of the cozy romance, cozy mystery, or cozy fantasy jar. But basically, 1 or 2 is a fantasy, 3 or 4 is a mystery, 5 or 6 is a romance. So let's go ahead. We haven't done fantasy yet, so I'm kind of hoping for that, but the dice is in charge. All right, we got a 3, which means we're reading another cozy mystery. All right, so next up, we will be choosing 7 covers from the cover jar, and these are our 7 potential reads for roll number 3. All right, this is our mystery jar, so let's go ahead and choose our 7 covers out of here. I'll put it over here. All right, so option number 1 is going to be, and these may not focus, if not, I'll be putting them on the screen as well. A Wee Murder in My Shop. So a Scottish cozy mystery is what it sounds like. All right, our second option is going to be Meet Your Baker. So another bake shop mystery. Our third option is Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers. Our fourth option is, whoops, I'm throwing it around down here. A High-End Finish. I think this is like a house flipper mystery. We had 2 there. We'll go with this one. Our fifth option is The Secret Book and Scone Society. That's 2 that we thought about reading earlier. Our 6th option is The Broken Spine. So a bookstore mystery. And last but not least, trying to make sure I get a good one here. How about this one? All right, our 7th and final option is going to be By Book or by Crook. All right, so next up, we are going to roll the dice and see how we are going to sort these books. I'll put what each number stands for up here. Since we're rolling an 8-sided dice, I'm not going to go through each one by itself because we'll be here forever. All right, let's see how we are going to sort these books. 4. So by Goodreads ratings. All right, I'm going to go ahead and do this. It'll be lowest to highest, and I'll play some music because this could take a minute until I get back. This is the order they are in. I'm not really surprised that Vera Wong's the highest rated of these books because it's the most well known. But let's go ahead, roll the dice. 1 through 7 will correspond to each book. And then if I roll 8, that means I get to choose. So let's see what book we're going to read. I think any of these will be fine. I'm most excited, I think, about Vera Wong, The Secret Book and Scone Society. And I think a high-end finish because I don't think I've ever read a kind of fixer-upper mystery series. All right, let's go ahead and see what book we're reading. All right, we're reading By Book or by Crook. All right, so we rolled a 6, which is awesome, and we got past all the mystery spots, and we landed on the cover jar, which always makes me nervous because it's the token I have the least control over. And it's just me rolling a dice multiple times to see what book we are going to read. There's just a very, very small chance that I have even a option of choosing a book, and that's if I roll an 8 on that last roll, which I did not. But we ended up having to choose a book from the cozy mystery category, which I'm not complaining about because I feel like the weather right now is just perfect for a cozy mystery. And the book we ended up with is By Book or by Crook by Eva Gates. So this book was published back in 2015. It's 371 pages, so a little bit on the longer side, but at least not over 400 pages. So we'll just be happy about that. It's book 1 in the Lighthouse Library Mystery Series, so at least it's a mystery set in a library in the lighthouse, which sounds pretty cool. And the book itself follows Lucy. So Lucy has spent the last 10 years working with rare tomes at Harvard's library. Her 10-year-old relationship, though, ends up ending, and Lucy decides that she needs some change in her life. And she calls her aunt and decides that it's time for her to have some fun in the Outer Banks. I don't know if you can hear that, but it just started pouring with rain again. It's the perfect night for a cozy mystery. Anyway, so Lucy ends up at the Outer Banks, and things get even better when her Aunt Ellen helps her land a job as a librarian at her favorite place in the world, which is the library on Bodie Island in the lighthouse. But then things take a turn for the worse because a first edition Jane Austen novel is stolen and the chair of the library board ends up murdered. And now she's ensnared in this mystery and she's not sure there's going to be a happy ending. So that is the premise of the book. It sounds interesting. We'll see how it is with reading it. The Goodreads rating is a 3.71, so not too bad for a cozy mystery. I feel like a run-of-the-mill cozy mystery for me is a 3.5, so it's right around there. So I'm hoping that I will enjoy this, and I guess we'll be starting another series, which is not uncommon in this particular reading challenge, I feel. I literally had one more sentence to say and the battery just died. Anyway, it's starting to thunder outside as well, and I want to go get ready for bed before it really gets here. So I'm going to go do that and then get started on this book. And I'm hoping I can get at least half of it done tonight so I can finish it off tomorrow morning. Then we can go ahead and do our 4th roll of the game, which could potentially be our last roll as well. This could be the last book that we read for this challenge, which would be amazing. But we've been here before. We've said those same words before and end up reading another 2 or 3 books. So who knows what tomorrow will bring. But for tonight, we got a storm, thunderstorm, lightning, rain, and a cozy mystery to read. So I'll be back in the morning and let you know where I am. I'm probably not going to update anymore tonight because it's already past 9 o'clock and I just want to get under the blanket, have a cup of tea, and get as much done reading as I can. So I'll see you guys in the morning, and hopefully by then we'll be choosing another book. So I'll see you guys soon. So I finished By Book or by Crook by Eva Gates, and I ended up really enjoying it. I definitely enjoyed it a lot more than I did Cream, Caramel, and Murder, and there's a couple of reasons for that. First off, you actually got to know the victim a little bit more than you did in Cream and Caramel. So you met the victim as well as all the suspects in the beginning of the book when they're all attending a little soiree at the Lighthouse Library. And you actually got to meet them through the main character, Lucy, who had just started her new job at this library. And this little party to celebrate the library's acquisition of the first edition Jane Austen novels was a way also to introduce Lucy to all the members of the library board and patrons. So you actually got to know a little bit more about the victim before he ended up murdered. Also, this book just felt more fleshed out, I would say. There was multiple storylines going on at once other than just solving the murder of the victim who did it. Other storylines include the disappearance of these first edition Jane Austen novels. They were disappearing one by one, and no one knew if this was a separate crime or if the crime was interconnected with the murder. And then kind of as a third plot line, there are members of the board who thought the library did not need a assistant librarian, which was Lucy's job. And she wasn't sure how long she would be able to stay in this job or if they were going to eliminate the position. So I think that's why the book felt more fleshed out, because there's multiple things going on at once other than just solving the crime like in Cream, Caramel, and Murder. I also enjoyed that you were introduced to all the suspects at the beginning of the book, and you knew it had to be one of those people that you were introduced to because those are the only ones that were present at the time of the murder. and it just made it feel a little bit more realistic because you could take a guess of who you thought was going to be, which was more difficult in Cream Caramel and Murder because you weren't really introduced to any suspects other than the main character in that book, Holly. And even though there was a ton of suspects in the book, you were still able to keep track of them all and who they were. I think it was just the way that the author wrote about them, because each character kind of had a main kind of point, or a main what's it called, kind of a main characterization that helped you remember who each character was. So like I said, even though there was a ton of characters, I didn't have any difficulty keeping track of any of them, which I sometimes find a little bit more difficult in these cozy mysteries if they introduce a ton of characters at once. And then there was a underlying romance between Lucy and two other characters who were interested in her. And I'm sure that future books in this series will delve into that a little bit more than this book did. And then also the main character, Lucy, lived in the lighthouse. She had a little apartment on the 4th floor, and I just kept thinking throughout the book how cool it would be to live in a lighthouse on the beach with a library a couple of stories down from you. I think that was an amazing setting for this story. And while this was Eva Gates' debut novel, I was wondering how it was like so well written, so fleshed out. And that's because Eva Gates is actually a pseudonym for Vicki Delaney, who wrote the Sherlock Holmes Bookshop Mystery and other cozy mystery series. So she definitely has plenty of experience in writing these cozy mysteries. So that is By Book or by Crook, and I'm definitely going to continue on in this series because I really enjoyed all the characters, and I enjoyed how fleshed out the characters seemed. They each had their own little quirks, and I can't wait to see where else this series goes. All right, so now we just have to bring up the game board and do what could be our last roll. We have 4 spaces between us and the finish line, so let's go ahead and bring up the game board and see what we get. All right, so here's our board for our 4th roll of the game. We can pretty much land still on any token except for the mystery spot because we passed all those. Also, if we get a 5 or above, that means we finish the game with just 3 books. So let's see if luck is with us or if we'll be reading one more book or more. Don't want to jinx myself in this game. Here we go. All right, that's a 7. Our Cozy Spring reading game is officially complete. I can't believe we did it with just having to read 3 books. That's so exciting. I cannot believe it. We actually rolled a 7, and we are finishing up this game with only having to read 3 books. It's been a while since this has happened. Last year, I'm pretty sure we read like 7 books for this cozy reading game, and to get away with 3 is amazing. I don't know what's going on this month. First, my May TBR was super nice to me. Now this cozy reading game is super nice to me. It's making me a little bit nervous to see what June is going to throw out at me, though. So quick recap. The books I enjoyed the most were By Book or by Crook and The Highland Fling. I definitely enjoyed reading both of those. And Cream Caramel and Murder was okay. I'll definitely continue the series to see if it gets a little bit better, but definitely just did not enjoy it as much as the other 2 books I read in this series. I really enjoy playing this cozy reading game. I cannot wait to bring it back in the fall. In November, I'm pretty sure, is when we play it next. And we'll see if it goes as well as it did this month. Our reading game for next month is going to be a mythology-based reading game where we are going to play a game where we have origami dragons and origami stars. And we are going to read books that have been inspired or retellings of mythologies from all around the world. And I'm super excited to see how that goes. If you have any favorite mythology-inspired books, please leave them in the comments below so I can add them to my list of potential books to read for this game. And yeah, I cannot wait to see how this game is going to turn out. Because I've made it, once again, a little bit more complicated than some other games that I play. All right, I think that's all I got for this video. Like I said, I am so excited that I finished this in a weekend because now I can spend the rest of the month focused on the TBR, which is only 8 books, so I think I have a really good chance of finishing it. The one other video that may come out this month, if I can get to it, will be my reading journal update. I need to update the January through April monthly spreads. And I am still struggling for ideas of how I'm going to do that, but hopefully if I can come up with some good ideas in the next week or two, I can get that out before the end of the month as well. Thank you so much for watching and joining me for this cozy reading game. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And if you liked the video, please hit the like button. And if you want to see future videos by me, including that mythology reading game next month, please hit the subscribe button as well. Otherwise, I hope everyone's May continues to go well. I think by the time this video comes out, we'll have about 2 weeks left. So hope everyone's TBRs are going well. And other than that, I will see you guys in my next video. Take care. Bye.